Hello, my name is Horik and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be doing a reading from the Prose Edda. I'm starting with the beginning of Gylfaginning, or the delusion of Gylfi. King Gylfi and the woman Gylfin. King Gylfi ruled over the lands now called Sweden. It is said that he offered a traveling woman, in return for the pleasure of her company, a piece of plowland in his kingdom, as large as 4 oxen could plow in a day and a night. But this woman, named Gylfi, was of the Aesir. She took 4 oxen from Jotunheim, the giant land in the north. They were her own sons by a giant, and she yoked them to the plow, which dug so hard and deep that it cut the land loose. The oxen dragged this land westward out to sea, stopping finally at a certain channel. There, Gylfi fastened the land and gave it the name Sieland. The place where the land was removed was since become a body of water in Sweden, now called Lodgren, the lake. And in this lake there are as many inlets as there are headlands in Sieland. So says the poet Bragi the Old. Gylfi dragged from Gylfi, gladly the land beyond value, Denmark's increase, steam rising from the swift-footed bulls. The oxen bore 8, moons of the forehead on 4 heads, hauling as they went in front of the grassy isle's wide fissure. Gylfi encounters 3 chieftains of the Aesir. King Gylfi was a wise man, skilled in magic. He was amazed that the Aesir knew so much that everything went according to their wishes. He wondered whether this was because of their own nature, or whether it would come from the divine power of the gods they worshipped. He set out on a secret trip to Asgard and changed into the likeness of an old man to disguise himself. But the Aesir, because they had the gift of prophecy, were the wiser in such matters. Before his arrival they foresaw his coming, and, in preparation for him, they conjured visual illusions. When he entered the fortress, he saw a hall. It was so high that he could scarcely see over it. Golden shields covered its roof like shingles. As Thiololf and Hvin says, Valhalla, the hall of the slain, was roofed in shields. Gylfi saw a man in the doorway of the hall. He was juggling swords, and had 7 in the air at once. The man spoke first, asking the visitor's name. Gylfi named himself Gangleri, saying that he had traveled over trackless paths. He asked for a night's lodging, and inquired who owned the hall. The man answered that it had belonged to their king. "I can take you to see him, then you can ask him his name yourself." The man turned and went ahead into the hall. Gylfi followed him, and immediately the door closed after him. He saw many living areas there and groups of people. Some were playing games, some were drinking, and some had weapons and were fighting. He looked around, and it seemed to him that much of what he was saying was incredible. Then he said, "All doorways before entering gaze into carefully. One never knows where on the benches enemies are sitting." He saw 3 thrones, each higher than the other. 3 men sat there, 1 in each seat. He asked the name of their ruler. The man guiding him replied that the king was in the lowest of the seats. He was called High. The next came the one called just as High, while the one highest up was called Third. Then High asked the new arrival if there was some more pressing cause of his visit. Although he was welcome to food and drink, as were all in the hall of the High One. Gylfi replied that he wanted to know first whether there was a wise man in the hall. High said that Gylfi would not escape unharmed unless he grew wiser, adding, "Stand forward whilst you inquire, the one who recounts shall sit." The Allfather. Gangleri began to question, who is the highest or oldest of all the gods? High replied, he is called Allfather in your language, but in Asgard the old he has 12 names. One is Allfather, a second is Herren or Herjen, or Lord. A third is Nikar or Hnikar, thruster. A fourth is Nikuz or Hnikud, also thruster. A fifth is Fjolnir, wise one. A sixth, Oski, fulfiller of desire. A seventh, Omi, resounding one. An eighth, Biflidi, or Biflindi, spear shaker. A ninth, Thvidar. A 10th, Thvidridr. An 11th, Vidrir. And a 12th, Jalg. Then Gangleri asked, where is this god? What is he capable of doing? And what outstanding deeds has he done? High replied, he lives through all ages and governs all things in his realm. He decides all matters, great or small. Then, just as High said, he made heaven, earth, and the skies and everything in them. The third said, most important, he created man and gave him a living spirit that will never die, even if the body rots to dust or burns to ashes. All men who are righteous shall live and be with him in the place called Gimli, or Vingolf. But evil men go to hell, and from there into Niflhel, which is below in the 9th world. Gangleri asked, what did he do before heaven and earth were created? High answered, back then he was with the frost giants. Niflheim and Muspelheim. Gangleri asked, what was the beginning, or how did things start? What was there before? High answered, as it says in Sibyl's prophecy, early of ages when nothing was, there was neither sand nor sea nor cold waves. The earth was not found, nor the sky above. Ginnungagap was there, but grass nowhere. Next, just as High said, Niflheim, the dark world, was made many ages before the earth was created, and at its center is the spring called Vergumhir, the roaring kettle. From there flow those rivers called Svol, Gunthra, Fjorm, Fimbulthur, Sleep, and Hrid, Slig and Yilg, Vig and Liptir. There is Gjol, which lies next to Helgrind, the gates of hell. Then third said, first, however, there is the world in the southern region, which is called Muspel. It is bright and hot. The region flames and burns and is impassable for foreigners and those who cannot claim it as their native land. Surtr, the Black One, is the name of he who sits and waits there at the land's edge to defend it. He has a flaming sword, and when the end of the world comes, he will set off to battle and defeat the gods, burning the whole world in fire. So it is said in the Sibyl's prophecy. Surt comes from the south, with fiery destruction of branches. The sun shines from the sword of the gods of the slain. Stone cliffs tumble, and troll witches stumble. Men tread the road to hell as the sky splits apart. Ginnungagap and the emergence of Ymir. Gangleri asked, how were things set up before the different families came into being and mankind increased? High replied, when those rivers which are called Elvigar, the storm waves, came so far from their source, the poisonous flow hardened like a slag of ciders, running from a furnace, and became ice. When this ice began to solidify and no longer ran, poisonous drops spewed out and froze into icy rime. Then, layer by layer, the ice grew within Ginnungagap. Then, just as Haya said, that part of Ginnungagap, which reached into the northern regions, became filled with thick ice and rime. Inside the gap there was mist and wind-whipped rain. But the southern part of Ginnungagap grew light because of sparks and glowing embers flowing from Muspelheim. Then Third spoke. Just as coldness and all things grim came from Niflheim, the regions bordering on Muspel were warm and bright, and Ginnungagap was a mild and windless sky. It thawed and dripped at the point where the icy rime and the warm winds met. There was a quickening in these flowing drops, and life sprang up, taking its force from the power that sent the heat. The likeness of a man appeared, and he was named Ymir. The frost giants called him Argrimir, and from him came the clans of the frost giants, as it says in the Sibyl's prophecy. All the seerses are from Vidolf, all the wizards from Vilmead, but the sorcerers are from Svartvoldi, and all the giants come from Ymir. Here, as the giant Vafthrudnir says, from where Argrimir first came, the wise giant among sons of giants. When poison from Elvigar splashed out in drops, it grew until forming a giant. From there all our clans have come, therefore they are all so cruel. Then Gangleri asked, how did the families grow from that point, or how did it come that others came into being? Do you believe that the one whom you were just talking about is a god? Hai answered, in no way do we accept him as a god. He was evil, as are all his descendants. We call them frost giants. It is said that he slept and he took to sweating. Then, from under his left arm grew a male and a female, while one of his legs got a son with the other. From here came the clans that are called the frost giants. The old, we call him Ymir. The primeval cow, Adhmala, Ymir and the birth of Odin. Gangleri asked, where did Ymir live, and what did he live on? Next happened, as the icy rime dripped, the cow called Admala was formed. 4 rivers of milk ran from her udders as she nourished Ymir. Gangleri asked, on what did the cow feed? Hai replied, she licked the blocks of ice which were salty. As she licked these stones of icy rime the first day, the hair of a man appeared in the blocks toward the evening. On the second day came the man's head. On the third, the whole man. He was called Bri, and he was beautiful, big and strong. He had a son called Bor, who took as his wife the woman called Bestla. She was the daughter of Bolthorn, the giant. And they had 3 sons. One was named Odin, another Vili, and the third Ve. It is my belief that this Odin and his brothers are the rulers of the heavens and the earth. We know that is his name, and it is what we call the one whom we know to be the greatest and most renowned. And you too can easily call him that. Bergelmir and the appearance of the second race of frost giants. Then Gangleri asked, how did they get on together? Who among them was the most powerful? "The sons of Bor killed the giant Ymir," answered High. "When he fell, so much blood gushed from his wounds that with it they drowned the race of frost giants, except for one who escaped with his household. The giants called that one Bergelmir. He, with his wife, climbed up onto his wooden box, and there they kept themselves safe. From them come the races of frost giants, as is said here in the lay of Vafthrudnir. Countless winters before the earth was created, back then Bergelmir was born. This is the first I remember when the wise giant was placed on the box." The world is created from Ymir's body. Gangleri answered, "What did Bor's sons do next, if you believe they are gods?" High said, "It is no small matter to be told. They took Ymir, and they moved him to the middle of Ginnungagap, and made from him the world. From his blood they made the sea and the lakes. The earth was fashioned from the flesh, and mountain cliffs from the bones. They made stones and gravel from the teeth, the molars and those bones that were broken. Just as High said, with the blood that gushed freely from the wounds they made the sea, and by fashioning that sea around, they belted and fastened the earth. Most men would think it impossible to cross over this water." Third added, "They also took his skull, and from it made the sky. They raised it over the earth, and under each of the four corners they placed a dwarf. These are called East, West, North, and South. Then they took the embers and sparks shooting from Muspelheim and flying randomly. These they placed in the middle of Ginnung's sky, both above and below, to light heaven and earth. They fixed places for all these burning elements. Some were placed in the heavens, whereas others, which had moved about under the heavens, they found places and established their courses. It is said in the old sources that, from then on, times of day were differentiated, and the course of years was set. This was before the earth was created," Third added. Then Gangleri said, "I hear of great happenings. It was wondrous work and skillfully done, but how is the earth set in order?" High answered, "It is circular around the edge, and surrounding it lies the deep sea. On these ocean coasts the sons of Bor gave land to the clans of the giants to live on, but further inland they built a fortress around the world to protect against the hostility of the giants. As material for the wall, they used the eyelashes of the giant Ymir, and called this stronghold Midgard, or Middle Dwelling. They took his brain, threw it in the air, and from it they made the clouds. Men are created, and Asgard is built. The Allfather sees everything." Gangleri said, "It seems to me that they accomplished great things when the earth and sky were made, the sun and the moon set in their places, and the days divided. But the people who inhabit the world, where did they come from?" High answered, "The sons of Bor were once walking along the seashore and found 2 trees. They lifted the logs and from them created people. The first son gave them breath and life, the second intelligence and movement, the third form, speech, hearing, and sight. The sons gave them clothing and names. The man was called Osk, and the woman Embla. From them came mankind, and they were given a home behind Midgard's wall." High said, "Next they made a stronghold for themselves in the middle of the world. It was called Asgard. We call it Troy. There the gods lived together with their kinsmen, and as a result many events and happenings took place, both on the earth and in the sky. One place there is called Hildskjalf, Watchtower. When Odin sat in his high seat, he could see through all worlds and into all men's doings. Moreover, he understood everything he saw. His wife was named Frigg, Fjorgen's daughter, and from this family has come one kindred we all call the family of the Aesir. They lived in old Asgard and the realms that belong to it. Each member of this family is divine. For these reasons, he can be referred to as the Allfather, since he is the father of all the gods and men and everything that has been accomplished by his power. Earth was his daughter and his wife. With her he had his first son. This is Allfather, Thor of the Aesir. He has strength and might, and because of this he defeats the living creatures. Next we will continue on Gylfaginning, on night and day. I hope you'll have me on your religious journey, and I hope you enjoyed.